Good day, everyone. My name is Martellus Bennett. I am a maker of I make things, and today I will be sharing something that I made, which is called Dear Black Boy, which is a children's book that I've written. I wrote, dang, was that 3 years ago now? Inspired the idea of the concept of this book, and the idea of this book was to inspire Black boys to dream outside of sports, but also use a sports analogy to talk about this journey of life. The game of life is the biggest journey that we will ever play. And the game of life is the biggest game we will ever play. It's not the game that's in between the lines on the field or on the courts or wherever it may be that involves the ball. So anyway, with that, all that, I will get started. All right. Dear Black Boy, the quest for freedom continues. Dear Black Boy, the quest for freedom continues. We must lace up our shoes to do more than run another sprint, dunk another ball, catch another pass, or swing at another pitch. We must lace our shoes and run toward freedom, cheering on those who are training and running our same race, picking up those who get tired or distracted on their way to the finish line. Let me read that again. We must lace up our shoes to do more than run another sprint, dunk another ball, catch another pass, or swing at another pitch. We must lace our shoes and run toward freedom, cheering on those who are training and running our same race, picking up those who get tired or distracted on their way to the finish line. Freedom is still a giraffe and a half away. Freedom is still a giraffe and a half away. So we must run another lap like the greats before us who ran the same race. Giraffe and a half. Shout out to Sel Silverstein. And we must pick up the pace. And we must pick up the pace. The low-hanging fruit is what the world prefers you to reach for, but we must climb the tree. The low-hanging fruit is what the world prefers you to reach for, but we must climb the tree. Climb higher, climb higher, climb higher, and you will discover that the fruit at the top is sweeter than Kool-Aid. Climb higher, and you will discover that the fruit at the top is sweeter than Kool-Aid. The game of life is the one game they don't think that we can win. And this must be the greatest game ever played. And this must be the greatest game ever played. This must be. The game of life must be the greatest game ever played. Millions have marched, millions have fought, millions have died. Millions have marched, millions have fought, millions have died. Millions have marched, millions have fought, millions have died. Millions have marched, millions have fought, millions have died. Millions continue to run for freedom. Run, Black Boy, run, for you can change the world for us all. Run, Black Boy, run, for you can change the world for us all. Train, Black Boy, train. For we need you to be in shape because the journey is a long one. We need you to be in shape because the journey is a long one. Dream bigger, Black Boy, dream bigger. For your dreams are valuable. No one can take those from you. Dream bigger, Black Boy, dream bigger. For your dreams are valuable. No one can take those from you. You deserve to dream the wildest dreams and to chase those dreams the same way you chase a loose ball in the fourth quarter, a running back breaking free down the sideline, or a fly ball in the outfield. You deserve to dream the wildest dreams and to chase those dreams the same way you chase a loose ball in the fourth quarter, a running back breaking free down the sideline, or a fly ball in the outfield. Set goals, Black Boy, set goals. Slam dunk those goals the same way you're doing alley-oop. For your goals in life are worth so much more than 2 points. Set goals, black boy, set goals. Slam dunk those goals the same way you do an alley-oop, for your goals in life are worth so much more than 2 points. Shatter the glass. Boom, shaka, laka, laka, laka. Boom. Exercise, black boy, exercise. Exercise your right to speak your mind, to pursue happiness, to seek peace and prosperity, to avoid conformity imposed by the small minds of society. Exercise until you're drenched in sweat. Woo! Hold on, I'm about to start sweating just reading that one. Exercise, black boy, exercise. Exercise your right to speak your mind, to pursue happiness, to seek peace and prosperity, to avoid conformity imposed by the small minds of society. Exercise until you're drenched in sweat. Ooh, let's read that one more time. Exercise, black boy, exercise. Exercise your right to speak your mind, to pursue happiness, to seek peace and prosperity, to avoid conformity imposed by the small minds of society. Exercise until you're drenched in sweat. Think, black boy, think. For your mind is your greatest tool. Move forward, black boy, move forward. For we know where we've been, but where will you take us next? We know where we've been. It's important. We talk about Black history. It's Black History Month. We know where we've been, but where will you take us next? What history will you make? Win, black boy, win. For the world needs more winners who look like you. Win, black boy, win, black boy, win. Win, black boy, win, black boy, win. Win, black boy, win, black boy, win. Win, black boy, win. For the world needs more winners who look like you. So lace up your shoes, pick up hope, get in the game, and show us what you can do. For the game of life is the greatest game you will ever play. Get out there and play your hearts out. Runners, take your places. Runners, take your places. And remember, anything is possible. So that's the end of the book, actually. There's a pledge at the back of the book. If you happen to have a book, there's a pledge at the back of the book too. And this pledge it's a goal setting pledge. And the idea is to start setting goals. You should have your kids start setting goals at an early age. They don't have to be big goals. Like they could be, there's different levels of goals. There's like attainable goals like today, long-term goals, short-term goals. So this I think about as being short-term goals to start developing the ability to set a goal and achieve a goal. And I implore the parents to do it as well, so that your kids, you can lead by example. Hey, did you reach your goal? I met my goal, so you can reach the goals together. And that's the idea of the pledge in the back of the book, and to start doing goal setting. So yeah, that's Dear Black Boy. I have time for questions. So if you have any questions, you can either type them, Cartoon will bring them in, or Cartoon will let you speak. I think he's playing God right now, so he controls everyone's voice.
That was a good book. Mommy.
Thank you.
What made you want to write this book?
He's muted.
Is it a lot?
I'm muted?
No.
No, he's talking now, so I'm sorry.
The question was, what made me want to write this book?
Yes.
Yeah, so I wrote this book. It's actually a very sad story. I was watching the Alton Sterling incident, and at that moment, I was just kind of like, I saw myself, and I was just, like, what do you tell, a kid that's grown up in this environment, right? Like, where sometimes you could feel like the society rolls you a ball and tells you good luck, and, or feeling like you have so much more to offer the world than just your athletic ability, how fast you are, how high you jump. I mean, that's only part of it. That's just the physical part, but there's so much more to to everyone as a human, that is just like we, when we look, a lot of times when they look at Black boys, they see how, can you shoot, how fast you run, they see the athleticism, but they don't see the entirety of them as human beings. So that was an idea for us to start seeing ourselves differently if we want the world to start seeing us differently. So I kind of wrote this book in that aspect of a letter of encouragement to Black boys all over the world to realize that they're more than just 2 points or 6 points or 1 point if you're kicking field goals, extra points. Okay, let's see.
Hey, Martellus, this is Jerry Butler. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good to see you there, man.
How
I
you?
know I know when we were at the Bears together there, you were one of the players that were up late and up early, always grinding, always thinking, always looking into the future. And I'm not surprised by your success at all. But, I know when you were working on this book and what you put into it, but tell us a little bit about your company and what you're doing now.
Oh yeah, so I started, I'm actually launching a new company this year called Tomonoshi. I've improved my design philosophy and just my philosophy of creativity. I've developed my own philosophy over just the last several years, so I kind of practice that now. And I still have the Imagination Agency. When I started the Imagination Agency, the idea was this concept of representation of in media, and the media that our kids consume, right? If they're going to be in books or movies or cartoons and things like that. So like, how can we see ourselves? But then as I started doing that, I don't really think representation is actually a thing that I can do or that we can do. I think representation can only be done by outside. So if it's done by us, it's just a reflection of our environment. So I realized that my body of work is just a reflection of my community. So I'm not representing them, I'm just creating what I see. So like in my studio, I do, I think so far I have seven books out, 2 interactive. I make interactive children book apps, I also make games. I'll be launching my first game this year, and I also do animation and film writing, and also composing and the music and stuff as well. So it's a storytelling studio. The Imagination Agency is a storytelling studio with an emphasis on the fantastical. So right now working on a new animated series with Disney. Like I said, I got the games and I got other books too. I have a couple of books come out this year, and I just make stuff. Like we just make stuff. I just make a bunch of stuff. So like
I do.
I have a bike. I create a bike. I've made ice cream. I've made chocolate. I've made shoes. So I've also creatively consult companies like Barbie and Adidas and people like that too. I also teach. Sometimes I teach creativity to like corporations and stuff like that too. So I just like to make stuff. I decided to spend my entire life trying to solve this crisis of imagination that we're experiencing throughout the world.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear there. And one of my strong emphasis of kind of coming on today was obviously to say hi and catch up a little bit, but also to see if you're ever interested in new talent and new products to be able to bring underneath your brand or help to bring young writers along a path that's unfamiliar to us, that you've kind of paid the price for learning, and yet you still grind. I've got about 4 children's books that I was inspired by you actually. And I haven't published them or anything, but I'm looking for someone to move the creativity to the next level, to see whether it's better to keep it written or move it into animation and motion, because it's a little longer. But I would love any guidance if you're open to that.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people this. I don't know how much I actually know.
Yeah, well, you're being humble. You're being very humble. I know you, so.
No, I'm serious. Like I always do this. So like, I always say this because like, I've just kind of like figured things out and I kind of created my own like language. It's not technically the lexicon that people use in the space or in the that I do. So like, you know, whether it's like printing books, you know, things like that. There's a lot of standardized things that, you know, that I combat in my process because I just don't believe that the standard is the right standard for the way the books should look, the paper that's used, things like that. So, but yeah, if you email me, I could try to give you any advice that's possible.
I'll get your information. You'll be a great mentor and, you know, probably maybe an agent. And I think that would be a great footprint.
I don't like people enough to be an agent.
Yeah. You'll hire someone to help you there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. How do I see the other questions? Oh, they're typed in here. Okay. I'm not Black, I have daughters. Oh yeah, so if you don't have to be Black, then Dear Black Boy is very Black. I wrote that particularly for Black boys. It was just intentional to give Black boys a book. You know, it's interesting because 75% of Black boys are up to grade reading level by the 4th grade, but I don't think people really write directly to them in a way of like connecting and the playfulness of it all. But like so my character is like AJ, or I have 2 books, one called Hey AJ Saturday and another one called Hey AJ's Bedtime. And it's about girls. And I have another one that I just released called There's a Unicorn in My Backyard, which is also, most of my characters in my books are normally girls. I have a daughter as well, so I write a lot for girls, and I prefer to write for girls actually. But so yeah, I have other books for girls that you can enjoy too, where the character may not look like them, but I bet they could truly relate, because the color of skin of the characters isn't really what the players connect to. I mean, the readers connect to. It's about, you know, seeing similarities and how they move, and when you're dealing with the fantastical, right? You know, you could put yourself in their shoes when you read about them and become those characters. And and I think that's a good way to start building up understanding for people who don't look like you, is through reading and through the media that you consume, especially when it's focused on the adventure and not the color of who they are. What else we got? Thanks, Dev. Thank you.
Brother Bennett.
Yes.
Ryan Stewart here, man, former Lion. Followed you throughout your career. I'm super proud of all that you've done and all that you're doing. It's beyond tough to reach the pinnacle of your profession in the NFL, and then to get out of it and seem to seamlessly create and move up the totem pole that you're working towards right now. So my question to you is, I've got 2 questions. The first question is from my son. Go ahead and ask him. What's your question?
What game are you making?
Good question. So this game is called, I can show you. I could kind of show you. I'm at my desk right now, but like, so I'm very much, so the game I'm building right now is my first game is a mobile game, not platformer, but it's called Pupcakes, Action-Packed Balloon Adventures. And in it it's about this new character I have named Pupcake, and she's like it's almost like a Mario type, Nintendo S type game versus like a Fortnite or whatnot. So it's more of a hyper casual game that I try to design games for the interstitials in life, like when you're at the bus or on a plane and things like that, stuff that you can push start and come back to. I don't want to design games that consume consume too much time. But yeah, I should be releasing a trailer for that in the next month or so. So it's hard to explain, but I don't know how much I can say. But yeah, it's a new game. They'll be available on your mobile devices.
And my question was, I've talked to my kids and family about the time that we put in to become a pro. Now that you're done, what's your day-to-day activities when it comes to all the different ventures that you're a part of and all the different creativity that you're bringing to the world? What's your time investment? Kind of give us a quick example of Martellus when he wakes up versus, throughout the course of the day when he goes to sleep.
Oh yeah, so it varies. So I'll give you like a day. So I'll give you like my days, and then I could break a day down to you. So Mondays are usually brainstorm days. So Monday is usually all the ideas and concepts and constructs around a lot of stuff that I'm working on, like just new ideas. I usually just use Mondays to come up with stuff. Tuesdays is a business. Tuesday is mostly just like business stuff. So it's like Tuesdays I always do like calls or like work on like finance or whatever, all those types of things in the business. And Wednesdays are storytelling days. So Wednesdays is only just writing or just working on stories and wherever stories there may be. Thursdays, I usually do product design. So I design like anything that's tangible, from all the fashion to gadgets to anything that has to do with like a, product experience. And Fridays, I design, it's game day, like, just because it's Friday, it's game day. Just I like to have game days on Fridays still. So Fridays, I usually design games, which, there's multiple games, like I'm doing video games, but I also created a game that's sort of like Pokemon cards. And like I have other games as well that's in the work, and just started learning to do board games and things like that. And then Saturdays I usually do experiential design. So just kind of like wherever it is I worked on, that what's the experience of how do I want people to experience this design. And Sundays I consume. So Sundays is usually lots of reading and just watching movies and listening to music and things like that. So that's kind of like how my days goes. My days usually start at 5:30 a.m. Wake up, shower, then I usually get straight to, I usually do philosophy in the morning or poetry. So I write poetry in the mornings before I get going on other stuff, just kind of like just my own time. I also just kind of think about whatever from 5, I call it playtime. So it's like 5:45 to 7:15 when I take my daughter to school, and then I come back and I run. Like I've been running a lot. I like running, getting all sexy and everything too. So I run, then usually get to the beginning of after I run, while I'm having breakfast and tea or coffee or whatever, I usually write down like what I want to do for the day in that space. Like, these are the projects I want to work. So I make my schedule the day of, because I usually design based on emotion and feeling. So my days can flip. So if I wake up and it's like, oh man, I'm really inspired to write this story, I don't wait till Wednesday to write the story. I just flip Monday and Wednesday's places. Things like that. But that's usually, so I usually work about 16-hour days though, for most part every day, trying to develop my skill set. I think if you play sports, the one thing I think about athletes is, I think that's often missed, is that like you said earlier when you mentioned like reaching the top at one space, but then I think the hardest thing is to empty the mind and become a beginner again when you've been an expert, or you felt like an expert in the space that you was now. But there is some transferable wisdom, right? There is transferable wisdom that comes from football to wherever other space that you want to do, from the discipline to all these other things. And you also know what it takes to be a winner. Like, you know what it takes to be a loser by losing, right? So that transferable wisdom that you could take from one space to the next space, what are those things I could take, those tangibles? So now when you start to rebuild the new foundation, you have something strong to build on that you do. Issue I see that most players run into is that, like, while they plan, they really don't think about the tomorrows. They really focus on the todays. And when we were playing, is the best time to start building relationships and bridges, right? You don't want to build the bridge when you need to cross the bridge. So it's like, how do you start laying the bricks to build the bridge while you plan to the transitional space of where you want to be next? And this is a tough process, because it's hard to think that there's something that you need to be thinking about something else outside of what you're doing, because your entire life since childhood, you wanted to do what you're exactly doing. Like, you are living your dream, but you're allowed to have more than one dream. So what are your other dreams, right? What are the other things that you want to do? And what is the best way to start positioning yourself to become in those spaces? So like in my off seasons, I don't know, tell me if I'm rambling or whatnot, but in my off seasons, like when I would train, I would go to LA and I would intern at like Nickelodeon or Disney in the off seasons and or job shadow or just take all these meetings, but I would be in LA, doing these things. Like, I'll tell guys, like, it doesn't make sense for me to go to the BET Music Awards if I'm interested in doing animation. It makes more sense for me to be at the Nickelodeon award shows, because you're going to rub elbows with the right people. So if you could use the platform that you have and stand on that platform while it's there, because once that platform is removed, because most of us aren't Tom Brady, what I'm saying? We aren't Odell Beckham. Like, everybody don't answer when I knock on the door. We got to knock multiple times. Like sometimes Tom Brady, the door already open. They just walk in. So it's like for us, we have to build relationships. And I tell guys, like, when you plan, it's a good time to like get tickets for people, invite them to the game, have coffee, respond to those emails. Don't be, a lot of times they try to put us in this bubble where there's like this no outside world around us. And we get caught up in this bubble and we don't get to experience the full spectrum of life, right? Because we lived in this NFL bubble. So it's like, how do we get outside of this bubble and make friends who aren't connected in the same spaces that we're connected in? So that way you can have two groups of people. You have the NFL group, and then you have the people that's outside in that new space that you're interested in getting into. And but yeah. Yeah, but my days are a lot. I prefer not to. I don't talk a lot during the day, and I prefer to have my head down. So I don't have a lot of friends and things like that, because I just decided that I was going to dedicate my life to solving this crisis of imagination, and my life's work was going to be the things that I made. So for me, like, I find so much joy in the process. Even when I played football, my favorite part was the process of like game planning. Like everything else, and then you go out there and you like, oh, I know this guy has bad hips or he has bad ankles. I'm gonna hit him with a double move and he can't, those type of things. And when it works, it's like, yo, that's great. And processes from NFL, like an NFL playbook is the same thing as a game playbook, right? Like if I'm designing a game, it's no different from designing an actual playbook in a game. So for football, so it's like the same transferable wisdom goes into game design too.
Thank you very much. You were not rambling, and that was all excellent to hear for myself and my children, man. Thank you very much, and I pray that God will continue to bless you, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
For sure.
Are there any more questions? Do people type the questions in here? Let me see. There's one in here. Do you have an audio book for any of your books? I don't have any. I take that back. I have 2 interactive books, but not there. I read on there. There's reading on there, but they're actually interactive books, not audio books. So there's like games and puzzles within those apps, which are available. They're in the App Store too. If you just search, hey AJ, they'll pop up. And they're actually the best interactive books on the market. I was always been interested in the idea of like books moving, pages moving, and right now I just started designing a engine to and building my own software to be able to make more movable books that move would be the better way to put it, actually. So players, okay, I see that. Any other questions?
You can look at the chat.
I'm looking.
Yeah, the chat has a lot more.
Okay, I see one. Thanks for writing. This is a nice. Hey man, these shades are like a staple in my wardrobe. I just got these. I've been looking for some glasses like this for years, and I finally found a pair. And I just absolutely love this. They fit my face right. I got a black ass nose, so like your nose, your glasses don't always be sitting on your nose right. But like this is like really good for my style.
Hey, Martellus, when did you fall in love with literacy? Or has it always been there throughout your entire life, that you understood the power of, you could walk through this life and learn by trial and error, but it'll take a lifetime to learn a few things, or that you could pick up books and add them to your algorithm and speed up that educational process? Like, when did you come into knowledge of that? Yeah.
Bro, your voice caught. I was like, wait, is that who I think it is? It caught me off guard. I had to look. I was like, wait, what is that being? So I've always been an avid reader. And there's the books are interesting, right? It's like I just love books. I love the way they feel. I love the fact that they let anybody write them. I like the fact that I like when people put words together. And I think the books are windows to the world, right? And it's the best way to take a vacation, right? You could read, you could go anywhere, you could go Hogwarts, you could go all these different places. And when you visit fictitious worlds, right? When you visit fictitious worlds, you come back changed. You realize that your world doesn't have to be the way that it is, that you too could possibly change your own world, like the characters in these stories. But I think books for me, I've always just been interested in learning, and I'm not much of a school guy. I'm more of a self-taught. Like I just realized over there, even my horoscope says this, like I'm just not really big on like having a master, like as far as just like a teacher or something, like, or a boss or something. That's why I struggled in the NFL. Like we used to tell coaches that we were coworkers. They hated that. But this idea of books and all this information that people have left for us to find, and I've never had a mentor in any of the spaces that I'm in. So, but I have thousands of mentors right here behind me, right? Like so many people leave so much information behind for us to find that we can discover new beginnings, new ways. But I also like this idea of antiquity. Like I like the past and the past practices. Like I'm really big on craftsmanship. So a lot of my influences are more Eastern than Western, right? I'm more Japanese in the approach, in my artistic approach, than I am, Western side of the world. But I really enjoy just the discovery of, new things or information or how to do things. Or also when I read, I go into the book not believing the author. Like the author has to make me believe. Like just because you're such and such and you have a bestseller, that don't mean I'm buying everything you writing, right? I read to like critically think about what's being said and do I agree or do I not agree? And if I don't agree, what do I think is actually the truth here or whatnot? And I also believe that the problem that a lot of times is that you can't read one book on a subject. You have to read several perspectives on a subject to really draw your own conclusion. If you read one perspective, then you're really just gonna take on that thought process versus just owning your own thoughts in the process of it all. So, but I just love books since I was a kid. Like, I read a good 60 to 80 books a year.
Yeah, that was like one of the things that I always wondered about, man, because I was always a book collector, but I wasn't a avid reader until I finished and was free, right? Like whenever I saved, invested in my money from the NFL, and I got to this point where I was like, you know what, I don't want to play anymore, and I started to read all those books. It was like, oh, this is the world and the knowledge that I've been waiting for, or that I've been searching for, right? Like so that was very interesting, bro. You gave me some of the greatest wisdom whenever we were in Mexico. And I didn't like the delivery, but I still accepted the message. And it was
what did I say?
whenever you walked into the dining room when we were in Mexico, you was like, hey, fat boy, you better stop eating them cookies before you end up with diabetes. I was like, I said some explicits, but then I was like, you know what? Yo, like my weight has been up and down. My mood has always been has been up and down. Like maybe there's some truth in what he is saying, right?
Well,
like,
well, the interesting thing is I see myself in you when we're doing things together, because I mean, not to put this last, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like you ran into some of the same things that I ran into, and even though you might have enjoyed it, it kind of deflated you in some ways as well, which was this idea of like being boxed into only becoming a blocking tight end when you knew that you had more to offer. But then when you try to show them more you have to offer, you'll start pressing because you want to prove that you could do it. And that situation is an unhappy situation, because it's like, and what happens is when we get in those situations where we get in these moments where we need to press, right, and try to prove these things when it's something that you've been doing your whole life, you know you could do it. And it's like, yo, I want to show you to do it, but you don't feel like the people that you plan for believe in you, but you also really enjoy blocking. But it's like, if I wasn't good at blocking, like I'll be able to throw me the balls and someone else sucks. And so like, it just gets, it could be really unhappy. Like, I don't know about you, but like, the loneliest I ever been was in locker rooms, right? I've never experienced the loneliness that I experienced in a locker room, right? Even like,
is it the tight end position, bro? Like, what is it, bro? Like, because like the defense always hangs out together, and the offensive line click up together. The quarterback's got their room, but even within the tight end room, like we're always individuals.
Yeah, but the tight end room is the most eclectic group of people, right? You always got the country dude, right, who wants to hunt with the hunting knife and wears boots and spits tobacco. You got the funny white dude, right, who's kind of goofy, strong, and but can play, right? Then you got the really cool black dude, right, that's like cool, can play, just kind of like doing his thing. And then you got the other black dude that everybody don't think they can play or can't get right. You know what I'm saying? And it's like if only he understood, what I'm saying, if only he could if he gets it, he's gonna be great, but they never get it, right? And that's like hey, that's the spectrum of the tight end room, you know what I'm saying? That's the spectrum of the tight end room, right? Like, but
Bro.
I think the other thing though is that, like, I think one, it comes from the coaches. I don't know. I never had a coach that looked like me at my position, or a coach that I could really relate to besides Dayball and my college coach, really, but I didn't really relate to any of the coaches, right? I don't really relate to anybody in the tight end room in that aspect, besides the fact that we write tight end, but we don't really have anything in common. So most of the tight ends go their separate ways once we leave. And then also, I always been drawn to the defensive line. Like, I always loved the defensive line as like the people or whatever. But when I talk about loneliness, it was just like this sense of not belonging, right? Because the things I was interested in, the conversations I wish to have, the things I want to talk about weren't in the rooms or weren't in the locker room, right? You'll have a moment of it, but the majority of them just want to talk about foolishness. So, and I've never really felt like I never felt like a player. Like, I was never a football guy, right? Like, I've always been more of a scholar and an artist that was, who has athletic ability. I actually rebuke, I actually don't like being called, an athlete. I don't like people leading with like NFL player, et cetera, because that's like the low-hanging fruit on my tree, right? And I think a lot of times this idea of being an NFL player is so grand to the vast majority of the world that they kind of stick that on you. So when you're trying to get a new beginning, it becomes an anchor, and you can't really grow from there because people remind you of what you once were when you're constantly trying to become something new. And when you constantly become something new and someone drags you back into what you once were, that pull and push, you start to question yourself in some ways. Like, dang, I used to be great. Am I not great enough for you to notice what I'm doing in this space now? So it comes just like this. So a lot of athletes will experience what I consider to be an identity crisis. And this identity crisis is that our entire life, we've been told that we were athletes, we were this, we did this, we do that. So we identify as athletes. But once we strip the idea of the game away, who are we and what do we stand on, right? So, and how do we develop character that's not on the field? Like, we all had a character on the field. Like, we pushed through what we needed to push through. We did what we needed to do. We showed up. We're a good worker. But then outside of that, it's like, all right, who am I as a human being without this sport? And when the sport is removed, not only from me, but from my family too, because a lot of families fall apart when the sport is removed, right? Going back into the household on a daily is a whole different experience for the parent. The kids having you around more, your wife having you around more. All of it's like, everyone has to prepare for retirement, not just the player. And most players aren't ready to retire. I think it's nice when you can make the decision to retire. And I also think it's nice to retire with a little bit in the tank, because at least in your imagination, you'd be like, oh, I could have still been doing that if I wanted to.
Hey,
but exactly. I'm not doing it by choice. So.
Hey, and speaking to that experience that the similar experiences that we shared, man, I really had to understand myself and really transition to intrinsic motivation. And I took that time there to learn how I could be successful, because regardless of, what people think about the organization, right, they've had sustained success. And so, man, I was observant the entire time. And it was like, okay, they're not going to allow me to do what I want to do. Let me try to figure out some of the clues to their success. And as I transition, bro, I use those things, right? Like that was said, everyone needs a routine, history, right? Like I use those.
That's the transferable wisdom. But the thing also that happens, I think what happens to a lot of guys is that you don't have to be successful today, right? Like when you start in something new, like you've developed this gap of time, right? Like you don't have to be successful today, right? Like you weren't successful today when you first started playing. You had to learn how to catch. You had to learn how to run routes. You had to learn how to block. You had to learn the 3-point stance, right? So like, why do we not give ourselves the same grace period to learn and to develop to become successful? So you have to have this space, and you have to be kind enough to yourself to give yourself the space to grow and to develop as a human in this new world that you're stepping into. So like, I get it. Like, I get it that we want to be successful because we think we have this expectations where we were already great. We need to be great again. We want to do great. We want people to know that we're great, and people want to know that we're more than what we once were. But at the same time, like, you know, you've been able to develop a time where you can really sit back and just kind of learn. And like you said, really think about everything you consumed, and also think about how much trauma you've been through, right? Like your body is traumatized, right? Most people like go through traumatic experiences, emotional traumatic experiences, go to therapy for years, right? We've been through physical trauma and we don't do any therapy. Like most guys, you know, don't do like, you know, you got to get time for your body to heal, right? We think we need to work out. We think we need to do certain things. Like your body sometimes, like my body didn't want to do anything. I couldn't find anything that my body wanted to do. I tried to lift weights, but there was like a whole PTSD thing, just being in the weight room yelling. I was squatting 350 pounds like my first year in retirement, and I caught myself on a squat rack, and I was like, yo, why am I squatting 350 pounds right now? So then I was like, you know what, let me find out what I love to do. It wasn't until like last year when I started reconnecting with Kung Fu, right? And Kung Fu was like the thing where I could just do it all the time. I loved it. There was I didn't need anyone. I didn't need anything, no weights, no room. And it's free. It's almost like I get to be a kid again. So it's like, you got to go through this place of rediscovering yourself, right? You've been giving yourself to this thing, this game, this idea, this concept, this constructs of who you should be and who you are. And now it's like, all right, but let me rediscover myself. So we have to date ourselves, right? Try new things with ourselves. Date your wife, date each other. Who am I as a husband without the sport? Who am I as a friend? Who do I want to be friends with? Who do I need around me? So all these things, this therapeutic experience of this transitional phase, you have to go through it. Like you have to do it. And it's okay, right? And the other thing that's hard too is like when you think guys are your friends and you try to call them and y'all never talk again. And then you realize that you're only friends because of proximity. Like we weren't really friends because we didn't really have much in common, right? So if you have one good friend from the NFL, it's great. Like you don't need to think that all these guys that you cross paths with should be your friends for a lifetime. Because a lifetime friend is a very rare thing, right? So I just think that there's this period that everybody must go through of this rediscovering their identity, and truly the true way to find your identity is going through this path of self-discovery, and only you can discover that path. No one else can tell you. Like you could read all the books, you could do all these things, and that's part of it too, right? Part of discovering the path is reading all the maps, right? And all these books and all these talks and all these things are like different maps, and you could kind of, let me go down this one, but you have to leave yourself open to venture off these roads and go in these different ways and do different things. Sorry, I get excited about this stuff.
Bro, so do I. I see a therapist every week for the men on the call. When he talks about the trauma, the physical trauma, I heal my body by waking up early and stretching. I heal my mind by talking to someone about the thoughts that I have and the traumas that I've experienced. So I appreciate you adding that nugget in there.
Oh man, I think it's important, bro. Like for me, art is therapeutic. So I discover the most about myself when I'm creating, right? When you're making things, like you discover a lot about yourself, like through the characters and situations, because I'm projecting myself onto all these characters, right? And when I'm doing this projection, you know, I start to see myself, the many versions of myself. And I think that's been one of the coolest things about this whole creative process. Okay, what else?
Man,
it's nice to hear your voice though, bro.
This conversation is great, man. I think it leads me into my question. I'm sold Coldplay for the Saints, retired in 2018. So I'm in this transition period too. And got two questions for you, Marty. One, man, what camera are you using that it moves with your face? That's just dope, bro.
That's just the iPad. And when it updated the software software OS 15.4, it's called Center Stage.
I thought I was tripping.
Yeah, when I first did it, I thought somebody was watching me at the crib. I was like, yo, what's going on? I know I'd be doing some really cool shit with the guy. Hey, why they watching me?
Yeah, I'm like, man, this man making a movie, doing a presentation. That's lit. That's lit, man. But second question on the real tip, we were kind of just talking about in the segue from you and Dwayne's conversation, being in that physical gym, playing in the league, right? And we always working out our physical body. And now that we transition into this space, you know, what does that look like, working out your mental mind, like going to that mental gym to stay sharp, to stay mental? You kind of talked about your regimen throughout the week and what you consume and what you put out. But just talk about that importance of pouring into your mental health, especially as a Black man.
I think the number one thing, it starts with your eyes, right? What am I looking at? What am I taking in? You know, eyes are the window to the soul. So what am I letting into my soul by what I'm consuming with my eyes, right? I get to choose what I look at and what I see. So that's the first start of the consumption of it, because everything that you take into your mind or your eyes goes into your mind. And then what am I listening to, right? The music, the conversations, those things too, because that's the direct entry point to your mind. And then once you start to be able to control your eyes and your ears, the biggest thing to learn how to control is your tongue, right? Like, how can I control my tongue? When do I speak? How do I speak? Those things like that. But I think a big part of that is, I think, reading daily, right? I think everybody should read daily. Like, there shouldn't be a day where you don't read. It's just crazy to think about, not reading something and also reading things that you might not know that you would be interested in, because a lot of times, like, people don't like to read books because they don't know what books they like. They just get these lists of like New York Times bestseller. I love to read young adult novels. Like, I love Great Adventure. You know what I'm saying? I could read them things all day, right? Then but a lot of times as adults, we think we have to be focused on reading like philosophy or like Eckhart Tolle or like, Brandon Bouchard or Brené Brown, like all these people who are supposed to be telling us how to live our lives are like these giving you gems. And those are good too, but I think there's something about reading fiction that's like totally different, because the biggest part is that we have to repair our imagination to really develop our inner child. And I think the inner child is the source to wanting to learn and want to know more, because the child is curious. So if our inner child has been locked away because of the lifestyle that we had to live, like where you felt like you couldn't be a kid or do these things right there, you have to reconnect with that. And I think that's just the start of a healthy mind. An agile mind, a playful mind is the most agile mind. And that's why we learn the most as kids. So the more playful we are, the more we can learn, because our minds are more, they're more susceptible to different things. And we just straight line, right? If you walk a straight path, there's not many ways you can go. If the road is like this, you can do anything that you want to do. That's why I like spaghetti junctions. Spaghetti junctions are like one of the coolest things. I always look at them. Every time I drive on a spaghetti junction, which is not very often, if I'm being honest, but every time I have driven on a spaghetti junction, I was like, man, this spaghetti junction is cool. Like, I think about all the different paths and all the different ways we could possibly go to get to the same place or different places. And I think finding what you're interested in and really diving in, try to become an expert in that. The same way you did your position, right? You play DB, you play wide receiver, you study wide receivers, right? You study these things. And I think a lot of times most athletes have very good study habits, right? If it's something that we enjoy, because you study game film, you watch hours and hours.
Yeah, the film is definitely how we learn, visual learning.
So finding something else that makes you feel that you can't put it down is the key. But that happens through this journey of discovery. You won't discover those things unless you try multiple things. And also doing things in silence, not like the idea of like not Lil Wayne's, silence, the G and lasagna, but like silence in this idea of just being with self, right? And in order to discover ourselves, we must be okay with being lonely, right? Because the only way you could truly see yourself is by not removing those around you. So finding the time to, like, for me, I'm not a meditative guy, but I love to sit under trees, and it's a meditative state for me. Like, I love to sit under a tree and just ponder and wonder and just kind of daydream. I do it daily, right? My daughter gets out at 3, I go to school an hour early because they got these beautiful trees on her campus at her school, and I just sit under the tree and I just read and I just walk. I listen to music. I lay down I know all the parents, like I'm that dad, so like I'll just sit under the tree, because this moment under the tree just gives me a chance to just kind of like reflect. And I've learned more from staring at trees than I could ever learn from staring at men. You know what I'm saying? Like, I learned most of the things I know from nature.
Grounding is so beautiful in nature, and you don't have to be a meditative guy to sit down by a tree and get the wisdom.
Exactly, right? And then especially if you take your shoes off and you stand in the grass and you reconnect with Mother Nature, because the most creative being is Mother Nature, right? So if I want to be creative, I have to have a relationship with Mother Nature. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to create in the grand scheme, in the big picture of it all. So I think a lot of it's just kind of finding what you're interested in. And like, I write daily, I draw daily, I work on my skill set, like, you know, every single day. Like, it's just practice. Like, I just look at everything as practice.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Is there any more? You got a couple, my iPad's on 10%. So I could take a couple more quick. I could take like a couple more, I guess. Let me see. How do you avoid burnout when diving into your passion? Shit, I don't think there's a such thing. How can you burn out on your passion? It might not be your passion if you burn it out on it. Like if I mean, you know, is it truly like, you know, is it truly, I don't know. That's an interesting question, actually, now that I think about it. I think the key to it, it's interesting because, like, say, like, you know, say if the passion is making things or the creativity of things, right? And so if the aspect is if you're looking at it, the surface level is really one part to it, right? So like, but if like, let's just take a book, right? When most people think about a children's book, they think about the words, the illustration, and that's pretty much it, right? But if you really want to dive into it, then you got to think about, all right, cool. There's so many things that most people trying to write a book won't think about, right? Like, okay, you got the dust jacket, you got the spine, you got the belly band, right? You got these multiple parts that now you can learn about all these different aspects. Like, it's like when you first start playing, like you only know some things, but when you become a vet, you start to learn different steps, you start to learn different moves, you start to learn all these different aspects of it all that makes you more detailed, right? And I think that's how it is when you start your passion. First, it's on the surface level. And then once you start in that surface level, you start diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And the deeper you go, you realize how much you don't know and how much you can know. And I think that's like one of the best things about it all. There's this moment in Men in Black when Tommy Lee Davis, not Tommy Lee, is it Tommy Lee Davis? Is Tommy Lee Davis? Tommy Lee Jones, right? Tommy Lee Jones is recruiting Will Smith in Men in Black 1. And he takes him to the pawn shop and he's in there. And he was like, he walked in and Will Smith saw an alien for the first time. And then Tommy Lee Jones told him, he said, yesterday you knew the world just as it was. Today you know that there is different. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. And that always stuck with me because it's like, yeah, we know what we knew yesterday and what we know today, but imagine what we could know tomorrow by what we did today. Like that line always stuck with me because it's just, that's how I feel about life. Like, yeah, this is what we have known. This is what we learned today. But dang, it's so exciting about what we could know tomorrow. And it's hard. Like, this is hard. Like, the work is actually hard. But so is football. Everything you do in life is going to be hard. Like, everything. Like, you get burnt out on football, but you still go to practice, right? You just kind of like, you do it. And even then, you don't have that much control. Like, you can't even take a day off in football. Like, you got to go to work every day because, you know, at least like when your passion, you can be like, oh, you know what? I need a day to myself. Like, you know, you only get Tuesdays off. Like, they make you come in every single day. And then in the off season, you feel like you don't really get to take time off because you feel like they're going to replace you. So you got to work out again. So it's crazy.
Hey, Marty,
Yeah.
I think your routine, bro, like sometimes when we're great at something, we don't realize, you know, certain keys to it, bro. But when you talked about your routine and how you have like your mental routine built in there, how structured your days are to keep you interested. So you're not working on one thing every single day. You're working on this on Monday, this on Tuesday, this on Wednesday. You're taking care of your body, right? And I think that, like, speaking to burnout, bro, like those are the keys to stay like energized about your passion, right? Like being organized, taking care of the mental, taking care of the body, right? And then keeping yourself interested. You also said another thing, which is in a really good book called How to Take Smart Notes for anyone who, but in that you talked about how your days are so flexible and how you follow your passion. So like if something was scheduled for a Wednesday, but you wanted to work on it on Monday, you would just switch the days, right? Like,
Yeah.
Whereas other people will be constrained to that system and no, I can't work on that, lose out on that idea, or totally get disorganized, right? Like, so, man, your organization, bro. Like,
So I'll tell you this though. There's the thing about this too. That I'll tell you that, like, I was listening to this monk, A pimp told me the same thing one time too, but I'm just going to use the monk here in this situation. But the pimp was cool, you know what I'm saying? But a monk told, I'm gonna just tell you what the monk said. The pimp said it different. The pimp said it too, but he said it in a very pimpish tone. So I ain't gonna tell you, but the monk said it too. But this idea of, right, when you think about being aligned, right? Like it's mind, you know, your body, your spirit, right, and your heart. When all those things are in the same direction, that's when the universe starts to answer and send you messages. What happens is a lot of times, a lot of days, what happens to a lot of us is that our body may be into it, but our heart isn't into it that day. Right. So you have to be aware of where each thing is so that you can keep it in line to go in the direction that you need to go. If my heart's not into it that day, what is my heart into? Right? And can my mind switch, right? Or is my body healthy? Like creativity, like I tell all people, I work out all the time because creativity, like this journey is a very strenuous journey, what we're trying to do. This is big work, you know what I'm saying? So you have to be in shape, right? You have to be like, you know, and all of it matters. So it's like, how do I get my mind, my spirit, and my energy, right, all in going in the same direction? And when you go in the same direction, you're forced to be reckoned with when you could get all those things aligned. But the key is like, how do I eliminate distractions to stay aligned as often as possible? And the eliminating the distractions is the hardest part in life, right? Because distractions come from so many different places around us, right? Like the children could be distractions, your wife, your dog, you know, all these things, your health, right? If your shoulder's bothering you, it's hard to daydream when you always brought back to reality because of the shoulder pains, right? So it's like, how do I get my body and all these things that matter to where I can just be in this moment of euphoria and whatever it is that I'm trying to do. So um, so yeah, I think that's kind of like, but I think the variety in there, it does prevent burnout. Although this week I had to write a whole book this week and that shit was, you know, but I got 2 pages left and I'll be done. So yeah. All right, I got one more question. Is Raylan Holmes has her hand up. Is that what that is? Oh wait, it's in the Q&A thing. Let me see. How is collaboration? I don't really collaborate in my process. No. I have a very distinct point of view. Early on, I did collaborate more, but now I just kind of like, I do every single thing now as I develop the ability to do so. Because I think I don't do things if I don't have something to say in that space. I don't feel like I have something to add to that space. So I'm not very collaborative in my creative process at all. Actually, I write, I draw, I do all that stuff. I pick up the paper. So I do all everything now. So I don't sew. So I do have a wearables team that I work with, that I'm collaborative with, and I do. So most of the stuff I do, the designs and the sizing for the clothes and those things, and pick out the fabrics and all that stuff. But they handle the manufacturing, and then I have a new album coming out next month. That was a collaborative process because I just did the structures, the song structures, and the and wrote and did the words for the music, all the words. All right, I could get one more question.
Are you singing?
I do sing. I sing in a rap. I've been doing music. When I played for the Cowboys, I used to be in an alternative hip hop band. We used to travel and perform a lot. Yeah, I used to perform a lot when I played for the Cowboys.
What y'all called? What y'all was called?
That was called the Moonshine Kids. Now our new group, I have a single out right now called Punta de Mita. Our group is called Liu Kang. The Black Lou, though, L-O-U, not L-I-U.
All right.
Hey,
I
was a subscriber to Marty B TV.
So that was interesting too, because I was the first NFL player to ever have a deal with YouTube. In fact, I got fined for having YouTube by the Cowboys. Now the NFL has a YouTube. It's the craziest thing ever. I got penalized for I was like one of the first people using social media in the NFL. In fact, you know, we have Twitch now. I taught Ocho Cinco and Terrell Owens how to use Ustream, which was their first Twitch, right? So like I was the first guy on Twitter, all that stuff. So like, but the NFL, like when I came in, that was not something that the NFL really was allowing at the time, and they didn't understand it, and I got penalized a lot for that as not being focused. Now everyone has a NFL has a TikTok. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Marty BTV was, you know, was hot though, I must admit. All right. We have one last question. There we go. Oh, iPad's on 5%.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Funny white guy here. Hello.
Sean McGrath, the tight end.
Yeah, I am.
What's up, bro?
Not a whole lot, man. Hey, thanks for doing this first and foremost. And say can you just kind of speak on when and I came on late. I apologize, kids. You get it. I please sit down. Can you speak on like your creative process in terms of like when you feel like you have the most juices, where, and just kind of anything and everything that you want to share about that? And I apologize if you have already spoke on this.
Well, first, I always have the juice. Hey, so you saw what the camera just did right there? That shit was crazy.
Man, listen, I'm like, this is trippy.
So
hey, this is dope, bro.
So creatively, so the reason why, let me see the best way to say this. So I make every day. There's not a day that I don't make. I make every single day. Like I'm always making. And what I make varies, right? I may do pottery. I may do I don't have a domain. So most creatives have a domain. So there's a difference between, like, you hear this term creative and this term artist thrown around a lot. But I think creative is overused. I don't think most people are creatives. I think they use creativity in their artistry, right? And that's either as a painter or even as a accountant. Like everyone uses this power of creativity in their domain. I don't have a domain. My domain is actually creativity. So the only thing I do is actually, I focus on like how to make things. Like, you know, I don't really focus on, it doesn't really matter what I'm making. So that's one reason why I always stay fresh. I don't have a domain. So it's like not having a position. Like they let you go to play running back. They let you go do this, go do that. And a lot of people are like, oh, how can you develop expertise if you play multiple positions? But the idea is not to develop an expertise in that position, but in actually understanding how the creativity works, because then there's transferable wisdom to other things you want to make. So for me, when I'm creating, the idea is to is really just what's my point of view, right? And I'm inspired by the world and everything I see. Like my wife would tell you this, it's probably annoying that I'll see a car and be like, oh, that car would be better if they just made the tail light like this, or they did this. And I'll draw it. Like I'll just draw the car, like, oh, the car should look like this, or it should look like that. Like I just kind of like see all these things. Like if I'm getting redressing, doing decorate, I like one of my favorite things is interior design. Like I love interior design. Like I love spaces. And but I could walk into a space and look at it and be like, oh, this is great. And I could just be like, oh, they use this chair, they use this fabric. Like I pick up chairs in offices all the time, or like places like, yo, this chair is nice. If I made a chair, what kind of wood is this? I kind of always I'm very curious how things are made. So that's why I think that's like a key to it. The curiosity of it all is probably the most, the biggest thing for me creatively, now that I think of it. But and I think the giving myself space to make in many spaces as well. Like I may go to the studio, you know, for several hours to write songs, and then that's just that day, you know, and then I might not write songs until another 3 weeks, or whenever I feel inspired. If I have a song on my heart, I'll just go record the song. Like I'm not a guy to be like, oh, I gotta write this song today. It's just kind of like, oh, here's an idea for a song. Oh, I got this idea. This is the instruments I want to use. This is how I think the song should work. So I get with collaboratives like music people or whoever, and I'll start like basically crafting a sound with them to build this song out, and then I'll just record the song, and then I'll just listen to the song in my car by myself. I listen to myself most of the time. I'm my favorite rapper. And and
kind of like on that, how do you know when to kind of pursue idea in whatever discipline that may be, and then kind of follow up on that? You got a lot of, it's awesome to hear that you're so multi-talented in what you do, and the music and all of the different mediums that you work from an art point of view, do those influence each other? Or are they kind of?
Yeah, so everything is connected. So like when I first started, so like everything wasn't connected when I first got going, right? I didn't know how to connect it. I didn't know what my philosophy was. But since I developed my philosophy, everything is connected because it all goes through the same philosophy, like the same principles of design that I've developed over the years. So like the music, the games, the books, all of it flows together, and you could tell that like I don't even have to put my name on it at this point. Like you'll know that it came from my philosophy and my point of view. So like everything goes together. So like when I first started making music, I didn't realize that 10 years ago I was making music or it was 15 years, almost 15 years ago. I don't know, very long ago when I first started making music. Then I didn't realize that like that would give me the ability to score the video game. Like I didn't know that would help me develop a point of view for what I think music should sound like. Right. When I was making music, I was just making music to make music. But as I started making music, you know, I started like, oh, my video game, I know what songs I want. I know how I want it to sound because I've made so much music. And then if I'm been writing movies or poetry, it also influences how I write songs too, because it's like, oh, cool. Like my writing has gotten better because my voice through language is changing over the years. So I think everything kind of goes and connects, but you don't know when it's going to connect. That's the key, right? So when you ask about pursuing the idea, I think you should pursue every idea to see what comes out of the idea, right? And pursuing the idea is not like saying, oh, let's go manufacture this. It's about going down the tunnel of like what this could be too. Like I have notebooks full of ideas I haven't used yet. And sometimes those ideas may be too early. I go back, it's like, oh, it's the perfect time for this now. Right. And because sometimes I don't have enough information to execute the idea that I have. Right. So it's like I have so much more to learn to be able to execute this idea, but I don't know enough at the moment. So like I have to it's okay to put it down and continue to work on other things. And then while working on other things, I develop more knowledge to be able to go back and execute something that I once thought of. I don't know if that
awesome.
makes sense. That makes sense, huh?
You know, Einstein was working on like 9 different theories when he discovered the theory of relativity. So I think you got the right idea there.
Yeah, I sometimes I think about those guys and I'd be like, man, they couldn't be that smart. They just had more, because think about what they had. I used to be jealous of them but I've been able to give myself this because of the work I did in football. Einstein didn't have to do anything but sit around and think all day. Right? Think about at that time, like thinkers used to have sponsors, or artists used to have sponsors where they would just pay and get paid, and so that they could just go make art and things like that. And so, but that the thing is to give yourself space to think, to be able to ponder and to wonder. That's the key. And how do you develop those boundaries to allow that for yourself? Well, my iPad's about to die. This has been really cool talk. I haven't really talked about a lot of these things in a while. I'm actually about to go to a ballet, a matinee ballet with the family. So, but I'm about to see Alvin and Ailey. I've never seen them before. But thank you all for the questions and the time, man. This is really cool, man.